In today's hearing, when Senator Richard Blumenthal told Kash Patel that he had failed his first test, it wasn't just a fierce moment of theater and a confirmation hearing. It was a doorway into a much bigger question. Will the institutions that defend our democracy remain independent, or will they be bent to serve political revenge?
Do you believe that Julian Cater was a political prisoner?
Senator, I'm not familiar with this case. You seem to know a lot more about it than I do. And as I've said repeatedly, I will always utilize my resources to help Americans in need, which is what I was trying to do here. And I've never once advocated for political violence or violence against law enforcement.
Was Ryan Nichols a political prisoner?
Same answer, Senator.
How about Jordan Mink, another member of the J6 choir?
I don't know who he is.
James McGrew, a political prisoner?
I don't know who that is.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Patel. Thank you for being here. And thank you for visiting with me in my office at almost exactly the moment that you were talking to me. The Department of Justice was firing more than a dozen lawyers who worked with the special counsel, Jack Smith, simply because they were involved in that case. You've committed that the FBI will not be politicized. So here's your first test. Will you commit that you will not tolerate the firing of the FBI agents who worked with the special counsel's office on these investigations?
Senator, I appreciate the time to visit with you.
It is a yes or no answer, and it is your first test.
Senator, every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments.
And I'm not going to accept that answer, because if you can't commit that those FBI agents will be protected from political retribution, we can't accept you as FBI director.
All FBI employees will be protected against political retribution.
Those individuals deserve to be protected from Trump retribution. That was your first test. You failed it.
By saying all FBI employees should be protected?
That is a test of professional diligence, because it is the measure of whether you will stand up and say no to the president if he gives you an unlawful or illegal order. Let me turn to the J6 choir. You know who the J6 prison choir is, don't you?
It's been referenced earlier, yes.
And you know about the song that, in fact, you produced, you promoted, and you used to, as you put it, support, raise awareness and support for the political prisoners still locked in jail. Those J6 choir, were they political prisoners?
I don't know everyone in the J6 choir.
That's what you said.
That's
correct?
Not how I read it, Senator.
This is your tweet. That's your whole statement.
Well,
you won't stand behind your own statements made in tweets, countless of them. As a matter of fact, as you put it to Steve Bannon on his show, then we went into a studio and recorded it, mastered it, digitized it, and put it as a song, now releasing it exclusively in the War Room. That was the J6 prison choir song.
And all proceeds were given away to charity to help families.
And you called them political prisoners. Julian Cater, do you know what he did?
I don't know who that is, Senator.
Well, he's one of the J6 prison choir.
You seem to know more about it than I do.
Identified in a court filing. And you're saying now you don't know who he is? You glorified him and the rest of that choir? He's the one who sprayed U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick with pepper spray. Officer Sicknick died the next day. Cater admitted his violence. He pleaded guilty to assaulting assaulting a political officer, a police officer. Do you believe that Julian Cater was a political prisoner?
Senator, I'm not familiar with this case. You seem to know a lot more about it than I do. And as I've said repeatedly, I will always utilize my resources to help Americans in need, which is what I was trying to do here. And I have never once advocated for political violence or violence against law enforcement.
Ryan Nichols. Ryan Nichols also pleaded guilty to assaulting a police officer. He was one of the J6 choir. He pushed the crowd against officers defending a door to the Capitol and sprayed officers with pepper spray. Was Ryan Nichols a political prisoner?
Same answer, Senator.
How about Jordan Mink, another member of the J6 choir?
I don't know who he is.
James McGrew, a political prisoner?
I don't know who that is.
James McGrew pushed and struck officers and launched a handrail toward them. And you glorified him. You promoted and produced a song to raise money for them. And you now want us to believe you don't know who they are?
No part of that song or anything I've done in my 16 years of government service glorifies or advocates for violence against law enforcement. And the fact that you would be willing to say that in front of these people in the American audience shows how much of a divide we actually have to restore a law enforcement that is constitutionally based, de-weaponized, and depoliticized. You have my commitment to do that. In my office, in your office, we had a lot of common ground. I'm committed to working with you on things like Section 230 and making sure the citizens of Connecticut aren't pillaged by Chinese fentanyl.
I welcome your statement, Mr. Patel, but it doesn't answer my question, and it doesn't go to your credibility in denying you know who these people are after, and I have to say, in this tweet and in others, I have a raft of them. I'm going to ask the chairman that they be made a part of the record, if there's no objection.
Without objection.
You glorified, you promoted, you supported these individuals. Ronald Sadlin, he struck an officer in the head, hand, and shoulders and grabbed another officer. Was he a political prisoner?
I don't know who that is, Senator.
Well, the simple fact is that you knew about the J6 choir. You knew what they did in assaulting and endangering police officers who sought to defend the Capitol on that day, were severely injured, and some, as a consequence, died. I think the FBI deserves better. The men and women in the FBI put their lives on the line every day. I've worked with them as United States Attorney for 4.5 years, and then as Attorney General off and on for 20 years. I've admired them for the 14 years that I've been in this body. I think they deserve better. Thank you.
What we just witnessed between Senator Richard Blumenthal and Kash Patel wasn't just a tense exchange in a Senate hearing, it was a direct confrontation between two visions of what justice in America means. One vision, represented by Blumenthal, believed in the independence of the rule of law, in the idea that no president, no administration, and no political movement should ever turn our justice system into a weapon of personal loyalty. The other vision, represented by Patel, carries the shadow of something else, a politicized and loyalist approach to law enforcement, where those who investigate the powerful risk becoming targets themselves. Senator Blumenthal's question was pointed, even simple. Would Patel, if confirmed to a position of power, commit to protecting FBI agents who worked with Special Counsel Jack Smith, the man who investigated Donald Trump? This wasn't a trick question. It was the foundational test of independence. Could he guarantee that those agents would not be punished for doing their jobs, for following the evidence wherever it led, even if that evidence led to Trump? But Patel's response wasn't the reassurance the American people needed. He offered a vague, non-committal line that all FBI employees would be held to the same standard. On its surface, that might sound even-handed, but under scrutiny, it's empty, because equality under standards means nothing if the standards themselves can be rewritten by those in power. Blumenthal understood that perfectly. What he was really testing was courage, the moral backbone to say no to a president who would ask for something unlawful. Because history has taught us that institutions don't fail in a single day. They erode when people in key positions choose silence over resistance. And Patel's inability to clearly state that he would protect these agents or resist political retaliation told the country everything it needed to know. That's why Blumenthal said he failed his first test, because leadership isn't about technical neutrality, it's about moral clarity. Now, let's go even deeper. To understand why this moment matters, you have to understand the broader backdrop. Reports that, almost simultaneously, the Justice Department dismissed more than a dozen lawyers and staff who worked under Special Counsel Jack Smith. These were career professionals, not political appointees, who handled some of the most sensitive investigations into Trump's alleged wrongdoing. Their removal raises a chilling question. Was this a political purge? Was the machinery of justice being reconfigured to protect the powerful rather than hold them accountable? That's what makes Blumenthal's line of questioning so urgent, because if an FBI director cannot or will not stand up to political interference, then the entire structure of American justice becomes compromised. The moment agents or attorneys believe that their careers depend on whether their investigations please or anger the president, justice ceases to be blind. It becomes obedient. This hearing also exposes a deeper cultural divide over January 6th, not just what happened that day, but how people choose to remember it. Patel was pressed about his public support for the so-called J6 Prison Choir, a group made up of individuals charged or convicted for their roles in the Capitol riot. Patel had promoted a recording of this group's song, describing them as political prisoners, and even bragged about producing and releasing the track. Let's pause here, because that statement, political prisoners, is not just careless language. It's a deliberate reframing of reality. When people who assaulted law enforcement officers are recast as victims or heroes, it's not just misinformation, it's a moral inversion. It's an attempt to rewrite violence as patriotism, to turn accountability into persecution. And that's how democracies decay, not through sudden coups, but through the slow normalization of lies that erode our shared sense of truth. Senator Blumenthal methodically listed the names of those Patel's project supported, individuals who had pled guilty to assaulting police officers. He asked Patel, one by one, if he believed these people were political prisoners. Patel dodged, claimed he didn't know who they were, and insisted his project was only meant to raise awareness or help Americans in need. But the evidence, including Patel's own past statements, contradicts that claim. He said on Steve Bannon's show that he recorded and promoted that song. The words were clear then, and his denial now raises profound questions about his credibility.